Our text this morning comes out of Genesis chapter 28. If you have your Bible, feel free to turn there. Genesis chapter 8, beginning in verse 10. Jacob left Beersheba and went towards Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there that night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head, and he lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached the heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east, and to the north and to the south. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep, and he said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So early in the morning, Jacob took the stone that he had put under his head. He set it up for a pillar, and he poured oil on the top of it. He called the name of that place Bethel, and the name of the city was Luz at the first. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, If God will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, I will give my bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace. Then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give you a full tenth. This is the word of the Lord. In Jacob's dream, he saw a ladder. This ladder reached to the heaven. This ladder doesn't quite reach to the heavens, but if you're standing on the very top, it might feel. Or step 4. Thank you, Joel. God showed Jacob a ladder that went to heaven. Heaven. Is heaven real? I hope so. Or is heaven just a figment of our imagination? Maybe something that makes us feel good. I recently watched the movie Heaven is for Real. In the opening lines of the movie, the father says, Is heaven just a hope? Or is it as real as the earth and the sky? And it's interesting to watch this journey of his boy, his young boy, 4-year-old boy who went to heaven when his appendix burst and on the operating table, and he came back, and this journey that his father, as a pastor, he's struggling. It's like, I thought I knew, I thought I understood, until this happens, and my son is telling me things that just doesn't match with what I had in my head. At the end of the movie, he of course concludes that there is a heaven, and that God revealed to his boy the heaven. Heaven is something that, or the afterlife, I will say, is something for generations, for centuries, for as old as time. Civilizations have contemplated, have philosophized over the afterlife. What is there next? Archaeology reveals that ancient civilizations, it was very much a real part this discussion, this thought of the afterlife. We see it in Egyptian culture and civilization, in burial rites and customs. There's this belief that there is something greater, something more. Well, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were no exceptions to this. However, the difference is that the God revealed himself to them in a personal way. Last week, or the last few weeks, we've been talking about Abraham, about Isaac. I shared about him last month. I shared about Ishmael. Last week, my dad talked about the birth of Jacob and Esau, which are Isaac and Rebekah's children. If you remember, they're twins, and Esau came out first, and Jacob came out holding his heel as the younger brother. This morning, I want to draw our attention. I want to focus exclusively on Jacob. Who is Jacob? Jacob was the younger brother. He was the second born of Isaac and Rebekah, the grandson of Abraham. And Jacob was, I think Jacob was kind of a pansy. He was not his father's favorite. He was his mother's favorite. He's kind of a mama's boy. I imagine, he would not have been outside with his dad working on cars and getting dirty and getting grubby, but he's like, no, I'll stay in the kitchen and I'll cook and I'll clean the house. And he very much was a homebody, and he loved home. And now I want us to pick off where we left off last week with Jacob being home. If you remember, he was cooking stew up, and his brother Esau came out from the field doing man things, and Jacob was at home, and Esau goes, "That looks good." And Jacob said, "I'll give you some of the stew if you give me your birthright." Jacob was kind of conniving as well. And he kind of tricked, or he did what younger brothers can do. And he got the birthright. Well, later on, then Jacob deceives, with the help of his mother, deceives his father into blessing him. If you remember the story, they put sheepskin or fur on his arm, so that when his father felt it, it was very hairy. And he smelt like his brother. And now Esau hears of this. Now Esau is furious. Esau is like, "I'm going to kill my younger brother." And I think he would have. I mean, he's used to killing animals and hunting. I mean, he was done with his younger brother Jacob. And, I mean, Jacob kind of had it coming to him. I mean, he was kind of a jerk of a younger brother, it seems like. Conniving and deceitful. Just not the greatest character. And Rebekah hears of this. Rebekah hears of Esau's plan to kill Jacob, and Rebekah says, "Jacob, you need to go. You need to leave, or else you're not going to be living anymore." Remember, this is Jacob's home. Essentially, Jacob is getting kicked out of home at this point. Well, Isaac brings Jacob in and gives him his blessing and says, "Jacob, I don't want you to marry a Canaanite woman. I want you to leave." And Isaac is sending Jacob away to get a wife for his safety. But as you just look at it, he's kicking him out of the house. Maybe it's for his best interest, but he's still kicking him out of the house. Now, from Beersheba to Haran, which is where Rebekah and Isaac told Jacob to go find a wife. That's where Rebekah was from Haran. And so they said, go up there and find a wife that's family. Now from Beersheba to Haran, that journey is about 550 miles. Walking. That would be as if when I turned 18, my parents said, all right, it's time for you to go find a wife in Sacramento. You don't have a car. There's nobody else around. It's just you. Go. May God be with you. This is where we find Jacob. And now I think that as you go, Jacob's like, oh man, why did I do that? Why did I deceive my father? Now I'm getting kicked out of the house, really for my own sake, because my brother wants to kill me. Jacob's really in quite a problem. Now here's the thing that I don't understand. Regardless, even though Jacob was a duplicitous brother and son, deceitful and conniving, God still chose Jacob. And God's plan was that Jacob would still be the father of all his people. I don't understand. And I'm sure Jacob didn't understand at this point either. You see, his mother, I'm certain, because he was a mama's boy, his mother was very proud of him and told him over and over again of the covenant, the oracle, the prophecy that was given to her that said, Jacob, you're going to be the father of a great nation. And Jacob's thinking pretty good of himself. Yeah, I'm going to trick my brother. I'm going to deceive my father. This is going to work out well. Well, at this point in his life, it's not working out very well. The land in which he was supposed to inherit, he's now getting kicked out of. He said, go down to Sacramento, California. Oh my goodness. Well, here lies another problem as well. If God had chosen Jacob to be the father of his people, to inherit the land, if you remember Abraham, what was the covenant with Abraham? I will give you the land. Now, if Jacob was going to inherit that, why is he leaving the land to go way up north to Haran? I'm sure Jacob's thinking, this isn't going to work out very well. This isn't what I had in mind when I took my brother's birthright. Jacob's life had just been completely turned upside down. And now I'm thinking that Jacob's pretty scared. He knew his actions had not been very morally upright. He was getting what he deserved. And then he falls asleep and he has this dream. And God comes to him. Now, I don't know if you've ever been doing something that you know you're not supposed to do, and somebody walks in. Years ago when I was remodeling my house, I decided not to go to the city and give the city lots of money for a permit. So instead I just did it under the carpet. And my dad and I just one day is just burned in my mind. My dad and I are replacing my front door. So we have a big hole in the front of our house, replacing the front door, and across the street pulls up a City of Portland car. Both of us look at each other and we're like, uh-oh. Busted. We kind of sneak back into the house a little bit and like, oh, what's going to happen? Well, here comes the consequences. We watch the lady get out. She walks over to my neighbor's car across the street, puts a citation on it, gets back in her car, and goes all away. We're like, phew. But our heart just dropped into our stomach, man. It was, this horrible feeling. And I've walked in on my daughters, too, as a parent, as a father. You walk in, and immediately they go, uh-oh. You know, whether you're a kid or whether you're a parent, you know that feeling. I imagine that Jacob kind of has a little bit of that going on. He falls asleep, he has this dream, and God shows up in his dream. Uh-oh. I'm getting sent away, I'm being punished. That's one of the options that Jacob is thinking here. Jacob had been caught. Romans 8:28 tells us, and we know that those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. At this point in the story, Jacob's not thinking, oh, everything's going to work out great. Sure, he's thinking, I'm going to go up to my uncle's house. I'm getting sent away to my uncle. I'm going to go up there. I'm never going to come back. We've all experienced loss of some kind. Whether, it's a simple theft. I remember having my car broken into or stolen. Or whether it's, the loss of a relative, a sibling, a child, a spouse, a parent, a grandparent. We've all experienced a loss of some sort. And in that time, can we read Romans 8:28 where it says all things are going to work out for the good? We're thinking, no, this isn't how it's supposed to be. And then people are saying, oh, it's all right. You're a Christian. Everything's going to work out okay. No, we're not thinking it's going to work out okay. Maybe in 50 years when we look back on that situation and we go, oh, yeah, God was there pulling me through. But in that moment, we are not thinking that everything's going to be okay. Jacob is not thinking that everything's going to be okay. He falls asleep. He has this dream. The ladder. And God shows up. Now, the whole point of this narrative, the whole point of this dream is that God's revealing himself to Jacob. That God has chosen Jacob, and God is coming down from heaven. This ladder connects heaven to earth. You've got angels going up and coming down. And at the top, God is up there. He's saying, Jacob, I've chosen you. And there's 6 promises. There's 6 promises that God gave to Jacob. And this is in your bulletin insert, these 6 promises. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to meditate on these 6 promises that God gave to Jacob, and which one of these is God speaking to you this morning? Which one of these promises do you need to hear from God? The first one is that God promised Jacob, he said, I am the Lord. I am the Lord. The second one, he said, I will give this land to you. Even though you're leaving, I promise I will give this land to you. The third one, he said, I am with you. I am with you. I will not leave you. The fourth one, I will watch over you. Protect him. The fifth is, I will bring you back. And the sixth is, I will not leave you. Even though Jacob messed up, God forgave him. God still chose him. God was still with him. God promised to bring him back. This ladder, it's not merely just a ladder. It wasn't merely just a staircase. This image that God revealed to Jacob, the ladder was connected heaven to earth. It was this connection between earth and heaven, between us and God. Between Jacob and God. This ladder that was revealed to him was this connection. And through this we see God's desire to be with us. It's Genesis 28. This is the beginning of the book. Over and over again, we have God revealing himself to humanity, saying, I want to be with you. I want to dwell with you on earth. We pray, our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Is heaven just some future hope that we have? Or is heaven somehow connected to earth as God chose to come to be with us, to bring heaven to us in a very real way? Jacob wakes up. I'm sure he's thinking, what just happened? He wakes up from a daze. He had just encountered God. And he said, surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. And I can feel his mighty power and his grace. And I can hear the brush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. Sing that with me one time, will you? Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel his mighty power and his grace. I can hear the brush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. Jacob said, surely the presence of the Lord is here, is in this place. So what does he do? That rock that he slept on, he used as a pillow, he stood it up as a pillar. And we're thinking, bravo! Good job, Jacob met with God, and now he's setting up this pillar as a reminder, as a memorial to that. Not so. You see, setting up pillars like this was common in Canaan, the land in which he was dwelling. And they were very cultic. What happened? He set up the pillar, and then what did he do? He poured oil on it. And that pillar, it didn't become merely this symbol, but for Jacob, God dwelled in that stone. This stone will be a house of God, and his pouring oil over it was a gesture frequently associated with consecrating cultic items. It makes it likely that this stone is seen as more than just a mere witness, but it's a cult object endued with divine power in representing God himself. You see, later on in Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 22, we read, "You shall not set up a pillar which the Lord your God hates." So while God had made himself known to Jacob, and here's where I want us to finish the story. Jacob didn't take that encounter with God, and he did not put it in his heart. He did not make God his God at that moment. Instead, he set up a pillar and he said, "There's God." He said, "God is awesome, but that is where God is." He went on his way. He finished his journey. He stayed in Haran for at least 14 years, 2 wives later, before he came back. You see, we can have pillars in our own lives. I think that church is a great example. We come to church and we meet with God and we say, "Wow, surely the presence of God is here." And then we walk out and we leave God here. Maybe we pour oil on it. And we say, "I'm going to go to church whenever I want to experience God's presence." What God was trying to tell Jacob is that, "Jacob, I want to be with you all the time. This ladder connecting heaven to earth. I want to be with you. I want to be your God." Now here's the clincher. In John, Gospel of John, chapter 1. Verse 51, Jesus says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." Through Jesus, Jesus becomes the ladder. Are you following that? Jesus becomes that connection now in which we can experience God. We can be with God. His angels are descending and ascending upon the Son of Man, upon Christ who died for you and me to connect us to God. And God is saying, through Jesus, "I want to be your God. Will you let me? I have chosen you. Will you open up your hearts to me?" Ask the worship team if they'll come up. And my challenge for us this morning is that, will you let God be your God? God is faithful. God is faithful. He's promised. He's promised that He will be our God, that He will bless us. Those 6 promises. Which one? Which one of those 6 promises do you need this morning? Take it with you and say, "God, I want to be yours. I want to be your people." You see, even though Jacob messed up, God still chose him. Even though we mess up, even though we make mistakes, God still loves us. God will never leave us nor forsake us. He's reaching out to us through Christ. The ladder. Will you take hold of that this morning? You see, fortunately for Jacob, the story doesn't end there. We see a few chapters later, in chapter 35, after Jacob had come back to the land that God promised him, he said, "Jacob, I want you to go back up to Bethel, where you had that dream many, many, many years ago." He said, "I want you to dwell there. I want you to build an altar." So he did. I'm thinking maybe pillar that he set up, maybe instead of setting up a pillar, he should have set up an altar in the first place. But God redeemed Jacob. And Jacob became the father of Israel. His 12 sons became the 12 tribes of Israel. Last verse, chapter 28. Jacob says, God, if you bless me, if you do as you say, I will be grateful. He said, I will give you 1/10 of all that I have. Now there was a conditional element there. He said, if. Now I believe later on, after Jacob comes back, after he goes and builds the altar, I don't think there's no longer an if anymore. Jacob made God his own. It was no longer his parents' God, but it was his God. And when we make God our own, when we give him everything, we realize that we're not just giving him a mere 1/10 back, but that it's all his anyway. He wants us to give generously and joyfully.